Hi guys, I wanted to do a live recording of this, but my Wi-Fi is just so awful that I'm going to go ahead and just record the video and post it to my page. I am out in my garden beds, revitalizing one of the ones that I just harvested from for a new crop of winter vegetables. This bed here had sweet potatoes in it. I have since then harvested them all, and when you harvest sweet potatoes, you have to dig out the entire bed. So this whole bed was kind of just tilled over. Try not to till as much as possible. I really try to limit the soil disruption, let all of those natural like water channels and root channels and all that kind of stuff, capillary actions of the water, all of the soil bacteria, everything like that, I try to just leave it as much as possible, let nature kind of do its thing. But in this case, I had to till it over. I had to mix everything in. So this whole bed has been, pitchforked and tilled over until you get a really good soil mix and the perfect amount of like water retention, nutrients, drainage. You might have to till and kind of break up if it starts to get compacted, but eventually it'll get easier. So stick with it. Organic gardening is the way to go. No tilling is the way to go. But anyway, I digress. What I've done in this bed is I have taken just a broad pitchfork, tilled it, loosened all the soil. I've added about an inch of compost, and I'll show you kind of what this is the homemade stuff I had. Obviously, homemade bonus points if you do homemade. If you don't, no big deal. Just get a bag of compost, lay it over the top. I do about, like I said, about an inch, and I just loosely lay it over, or roughly kind of spread it, and then I'll use a rake. I kind of just, do one of these, kind of mix it all in, try to distribute it evenly so that I don't have big pockets of compost or big pockets of, clumped soil. That's already been done, so I've already done that. And so I'm going to put this on my tripod now, and I'm going to show you kind of what I do from here. The next step I will do is I will use a organic, all-purpose, well-balanced fertilizer. This is it's got a 3-4-4, so it's got the nitrogen, the potash, and the phosphate pretty well balanced. Just gives a little bit more nutrients to the soil to get them off and running. So I will spread this across the entire surface of the garden bed and loosely rake that in as well. If you read the back of your bags, it will tell you how much to distribute. So for instance, this one says garden beds do 3 pounds or 9 cups per 50 square feet. My garden beds are 3x8, just 24 square feet. I'm gonna round up to 25, okay? Which would be half of that. So I need 4.5 cups of this broadcasted over the top of the soil. So that's what I'm gonna do now. And I'll put this on the tripod so you can see. Stand by. It's pretty cold out. It's really kind of getting to be winter here. So this is a 2-cup old measuring cup that I have just dedicated. A lot of this stuff you can get at Goodwill too. If you don't have any old junky ones that you want to dedicate to garden, go to Goodwill. You can get them for like $1. And it makes just life a lot easier when you have your measuring cup and your garden tote ready to go. So I need 4.5 cups. Just gonna do a heaping 2-cup thing here, and I just start. So I know I'm gonna need 2 of these. I just do this across half the bed. So I try to distribute it as evenly as possible. All right, that's half of what I need to do. Did it on that half. You try to as evenly-ish as possible, broadcast it across the top so that when you rake it in, you don't get like all of it on this side or that side. So here we go again, another heaping 2 cups. I'm just gonna sprinkle this across the top. Doesn't need to be perfect because you're gonna rake it and it's gonna get all spread all over anyway. So that is my all-purpose fertilizer. I just take my fork or my rake and I just do one of these. Let's see if you guys can see here. It's way better. I just gently go back and forth I want to keep this pretty much at the surface of the soil. I don't want to get it buried too deep in there, because when it rains or when it gets watered, gravity obviously will go downward. So I want all of these to slowly be distributed as it gets watered down to the roots. I put it at the bottom, the plant needs to grow all the way obviously down to the bottom to get to that nutrients, which is a waste. So by leaving it at the surface of the soil, as it gets watered, it will trickle down into the root systems and naturally work its way down. Just a little tip there. So I'm barely raking it into the surface of the soil here. I just want to sort of get it so it's not all on the top. All right, so that's pretty easy. Just very gently kind of raking this in to the very top of the soil. Now I know, no matter what I plant throughout the entire bed, there'll be a little bit of fertilizer to get that plant fed. A granular is going to be more of a slow release. Obviously, like I said, organic is the way to go, because it's going to just naturally feed the plant instead of being those super fast bursts of chemical synthetic fertilizers. This will improve the soil quality instead of burning it. And then when I get to the corners here, I just use my hand just to kind of make sure I get in the corners. Really good. All right, that looks great. And as I'm raking, I'm just trying to make sure that I keep it as even and leveled out as possible, because this is pretty much the last step before I lay my drip irrigation system back down. All right, cool. I've got everything raked in. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my drip irrigation system back down. My drip irrigation system is this. Let's see if I can bring you guys over here and show you real quick before I put you back up there. My drip irrigation system has this flexible tubing, and you can see how right now I just have it sort of laid off to the side, slung over the side. Again, I've kind of engineered this over the last 5 years, and this has been the perfect final addition, I think. So now I'm going to just put this back in. I'm going to lay it back in here. The way I have it is I have one solid distribution pipe, which is, it brings the water to each of these drip lines. These drip lines, I run 4, obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, if you can see there. These drip lines have these pre-engineered auto pressure regulating orifices, and these all drip, they self-clean, they all drip the perfect amount of water throughout the entire length of the bed, excuse me. So no matter where it is, whether it's the last bed or the first bed on the line, they're all going to get the equal amounts of water. So I really love this stuff. I won't get too far into that. I have some other videos on my channel about this, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this feeder tube back at the beginning of the bed. Okay, that stays there, and I usually anchor this here with some galvanized stakes. Let me show you what those are. Those are these, like just landscape stakes. And so I take them and I just pin it against the side of the bed. This is the best way I've found to do this, because the soil is so loose right now. If you stick this in, it's not really gonna hold much. It's just gonna, it's just gonna pop right back up. So by pinning it like this against the side of the bed, it holds it firm, because this thing is not going anywhere now. That is super locked tight. And so again, like I said over here, if I were just to, I'll show you here because I'll probably do it. If I just were to do it like this, that's gonna pop right back up. Like, it's just gonna, so I use these, lay it in place. These ones actually work a little bit better for this purpose. And it's a little harder to do with one hand. There we go. Now I have that securely fastened to the end of the bed, and I can run all of these lines and lay them evenly right here. So let me put this back on the tripod and I will show you how I do that. This is not, again, not a very hard process, but it's much easier. It's much easier to regenerate the bed, till it over, add amendments when you're not having to fight with all of those drip lines running through the bed. I've done that before. Very first version of these drip lines, I did the rigid grid, and it was a nightmare because I had to like go in between each of the squares, and I had to like flip this whole thing out. It was a nightmare. So I'm gonna kind of grab all these lines, run them down the length of the bed. This one got the little stakes at the end, just staking them in place here, trying to even it out all the way along the length of the bed. So hopefully you guys can see that. Eyeballing it at this point. I'll show you that up close. This is what it looks like. Again, I just took this and I just laid it. Doesn't need to be perfect. I just sort of try to make each of the spaces even. And as this wicks outward, it will fill the entire bed with a gentle drip irrigation and water every plant perfectly. So that's the drip irrigation system laid back down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my plants, no matter what I plant here. Let's see what I'm going to plant. I'm going to plant some tatsoi, but the process is the same for every plant, no matter what you're planting. I take it and I just roughly lay out where I want to put this. These plants are looking a little rough. They are well overdue to be planted. They're kind of in my plant graveyard, but we won't talk about that. So what I do is I roughly lay it out. Again, I use recycled mini blinds as my plant markers. They're such a great resource to recycle and repurpose. With some pencil, boom, you have your plant markers. So if you don't have your plants yet and you're going to plant them from seed, you can go ahead and make yourself some markers and just sort of space out. I like to visually see what my bed's going to look like and put them, throughout the bed. Then when I have everything laid out well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig holes and I'm going to put a little bit of this in the bottom of each hole. I love this stuff. I think it really gets the plants off to a great start. It has that beneficial microhaze and this has this in it. And it's just a little bit of a turbo boost in the bottom of the plant hole. You just kind of go like this. I just sprinkle maybe a tablespoon in there, and then I'll set the plant in. And as soon as I water that, those bottom of the roots are going to get a hit of that fertilizer and that starter food, and they're going to be off to the races here. It helps with transplant shock. So it's another, everyone's like, what is wrong with you? How does your garden get to be so mutant big? And I really do think that this, and then obviously the homemade compost, has a lot to do with it. So highly recommend that. Other than that, guys, it's just basically laying out whatever you want and getting stuff in the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and get to it. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. I mean, other than that, I'm looking a little disheveled. It's all right. Other than just laying everything out. I mean, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to stick this on my tripod and keep recording until my battery dies. So you can watch if you want. I'm going to sort of just start laying these things out and probably plant some stuff right now. I do plant my peas, which I'm probably going to plant in this bed, and I'll show you just real quick what that looks like. These are some peas I started a little while ago, some sugar snap peas. They are frost hardy. I grow everything on these like rebar circle trellis cage things. So I'll probably add 2 of those over there to the end just to mark off some space and plant some more peas. But they really like the cooler weather and will grow up along very nicely. Had a little bit of bug issues here, so they're just kind of starting to come back to life. But other than that, try a fall garden. Fall gardens are really super helpful, or super easy. What's helpful for fall gardens is what I was going to say, are these hoop houses. I know I've done some more videos on these on my channel. Check them out. But once it starts to get really cold, when I start getting frosts or freezes, I will change out this tulle netting with some just plastic clear sheet, like it's from the painter section at like Home Depot or whatever. You can buy greenhouse plastic, which is more expensive and will last longer. But the painter's sheeting is much more accessible and cheaper. So, you know, whichever you want to do. But my battery is going to die, and so I'm going to go. I'm going to actually end this video, and hopefully that was kind of helpful. Don't be afraid to plant a winter garden. You can get so much food out of your garden in the winter. I'm going to be planting some tatsoi, bok choy, a lot of Asian greens, a lot of cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, lettuce, peas. You can see here, this is kind of the garden stuff that I've planted a little bit earlier in the season, but I've planted some more bok choy in this bed, which is here, and Napa cabbage, kale. Like, all of this stuff is really cold tolerant. You'd be shocked at how much you can grow in the winter. Also over here, I have radishes and turnips. I've got carrots, green onions. This tomato plant that planted itself, but I'm gonna let it go. But all of this stuff will thrive in the cooler fall temperatures. So I'm gonna go. Hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, keep gardening.